So today I'm kind of covering a real life case study from the football club, and I learned a few things myself going through this process, and I'm going to try and draw in some lessons to help you guys as well, not just seeing professional athletes, but just seeing any athlete in your clinic. I guess a good little intro would be to say that I'm with the football club 2 days a week. I'm in a private practice the rest of the time, and at the football club, my main role as the chiropractor there is in injury prevention. So I'm performing my own assessment to try and pick up any minor little issues and then nip them in the bud to try and keep a healthy person healthy, or keep the healthy person performing. And I'm doing my own assessment. The physios are doing their assessment. The massage therapists are doing their bit. The S&C guys are doing their bit. The doctors doing their bit. All together, the idea is we're trying to, like I say, keep athletes healthy. But occasionally, of course, you do get injuries, and that's what I'm going to bring in today, is talking about one particular injury. I'm deliberately choosing an injury that's really common. It's kind of our bread and butter as a chiropractor, try and relate it to as many people as possible. And as I'm talking through this case study, the trick isn't in the diagnosis. The diagnosis bit is easy. The trick is the details with the management of this player. So I'm a bit vague on the details, confidentiality reasons, of course, but so we've got a 30-plus-year-old football player who's coming towards the end of his career. He's a regular starter in the team. He's an important player for the team, and he's got back pain with pain down the right leg. So I'm in on that day. The physio gets the heads up that he's on his way with this new radiating leg pain. He says, "Nick, you're the back guy. You're the specialist in spines. Can you assess him and see what you think?" So on initial assessment, 8 out of 10 pain. He's in quite a lot of pain. He's got obvious muscle spasm, lumbar flexions reduced to 30 degrees, straight leg raise is pretty poor, 30 degrees on the affected side. Slump test is positive on the affected side. And he's got some weakness in the extensor hallucis longus and the perineals, kind of graded 4 out of 5 in terms of strength. So kind of pretty obvious weakness in some of the myotomes down there. And no red flags. So we see this type of thing all the time, don't we, guys? Athlete or no athlete, we've got some disc problems here. So I go into the medical room after doing my assessment, and there's the room full of different physios and therapists and doctors, and the lead physio looks straight at me as soon as I walk in the door, said, "Nick, what's going on?" And I let him know what the findings are. Pretty obvious findings, of course, and important findings as well for a football player with a weak foot. Not very good. And you can hear a pin drop. Everyone, all eyes on me, and he says, "What do you think we should do then, Nick?" Now we've got a situation where in private practice, like I've said a couple of times already, this is our bread and butter, isn't it? We're the expert, relatively low pressure, relatively low stakes. It's just me and the patient in front of me, and we've got this situation. Some of the elements of that assessment, well, it could be the L4, L5 disc, it could be the L5, S1 disc. To be honest, in private practice, that doesn't really matter to me. We know it's a lower lumbar spine disc injury, right? We can be a bit vague. My treatment doesn't really differ whether it's one level or the other. And prognosis-wise, in private practice, I can be vague. I can probably say, well, if it's a mild disc injury, maybe we're talking 6 weeks. If it's a proper full-blown prolapse, maybe we're heading towards the 12 weeks. But I'm probably going to let the patient know in front of me that, it's going to be a number of weeks. And plan of management, we're going to look at the most cost-effective plan of management in most cases for these patients, with something with the best long-term results, quite a patient-centered viewpoint there. Whereas in this particular situation, the football club and sports medicine, again, as the chiropractor, I'm supposedly the expert in this situation, but this time the pressure's cranked up, the stakes are cranked up. I've got all eyes of the medical team on me, the player's livelihood potentially, again, neurological changes down in that foot, and although not directly, I've got half the squad's probably their eyes on me as well as the manager, and actually diagnosing someone with a lower lumbar disc injury in this situation is too vague. We need to be more clear, we need to be more precise, we need to know which disc is involved, we need to know how bad the disc injury is. 6 to 12 weeks, well, that's the difference between I don't know whether that's 10 games and 20 games. That means a lot to the football club. And plan of management, actually, well, in this case, we've got a large budget. Cost effectiveness doesn't really come into account in this situation. And we're looking for not good long-term results. This player's career is going to be over in in 2 or 3 years potentially, just due to his age. So we're looking for short-term results, we're looking for quick results. So I'm looking to get some of this pressure off me, right? So I'm going to look to involve some of the people around me. That's quick. There's an on-site doctor, so I'm going to involve his expertise. We're going to get some analgesia to try and help some of the pain. And I'm looking for more information. I want to be a bit clear as to what's going on with the discs. And it's another strategy to try and take the pressure off me a little bit, give me some more thinking time. So we send him for an MRI, and we're lucky in that, as would be the case in most professional sports, we can get an MRI scan later that day or maybe tomorrow morning. We're looking to try and find the difference between maybe some of these disc injuries you can see at the bottom there. So day 2, results come back. Small posterolateral disc extrusion abutting the S1 nerve root. So we know what level it is now, and we know what sort of scale we're talking at the bottom there in terms of severity. So we've got nucleus pulposus is coming out. It has escaped. That's a massive inflammatory reaction you get with that. No wonder there's some muscle spasm there. But the pressure's still on me. The question is, Nick, what do you think we should do? So on this occasion, we can start to do some gentle work at this point. We know what's going on a little bit more in the back. But again, I'm looking to involve the expertise of others around me. So we're referring to a consultant. Now, surprise, surprise, you send someone to a consultant, and there's certain tools they have in their toolbox for this type of thing. Most of us would know would be injection, option 1, or surgery, option 2. You know, it's a bit like sending someone to a chiropractor, and surprise, surprise, the chiropractor recommends some manipulation, right? So injection, so the idea of sending to the consultant is not because we're surprised, you know, we kind of know what the treatment options are going to be, but we're looking for his expertise in terms of the prognosis for this sort of thing, so we can weigh everything up and create the best plan of management for this athlete. Consultant's expert opinion is if you have an injection and follow it with conservative care, we're talking around the 8-week mark. Surgery, longer, 12 weeks. So the temptation is to go in for injection. That's a pretty good turnaround there, 8 weeks, isn't it, for this sort of injury? But just be aware, in this situation, we can't afford to have an injection, mess around for 4 weeks and it not go anywhere, and then decide to have surgery. Because if we're going to do that, we'll cut to the chase. Let's just have surgery straight away. That's the difference between, again, 5 or 10 football matches that this player is going to be out for. So now the conversation's changing. Instead of Nick, what should we do? We've got the conversation of, well, everyone, we're all sitting around in the medical room at this point. Everyone, we've got these 3 options. What should we do? It's important to try and bring in other people when you're feeling the heat. These are the 3 options. My suggestion, gut feeling on this type of thing is probably, you know, on a good day in private practice, some of us may be able to get these patients turned around in, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks. But I'm going to go for the worst case scenario. I'm going to go for sort of more like the 10 to 12 week area. Managing expectations, maybe, but that's my estimation. Well, and we know what the consultant said already. Evidence-based medicine, really important in an environment like this. Let's talk about these sorts of things and bring this into the decision-making as well. So evidence-based, we're going to tie in the patient's values and preferences with my clinical expertise and maybe some of the others in the room, and look at the best research as well. So I'm just going to whiz through kind of an evidence-based approach for this. So we know the patient, it's age and speed is what we're after, really. So, sorry, speed is what we're after. Short-term results is what we're after because of the age of the athlete. Clinical expertise. Well, best case scenario, I'm just moving my thing there so I can see that part of the screen. Best case scenario, we're probably talking maybe 8 weeks. But we're probably going to feed the information into the team in terms of the worst case scenario, managing expectations. Worst case scenario, maybe 12 weeks. Well, actually, that isn't the worst case scenario, 12 weeks, is it? Worst case scenario is we start along the conservative plan of management. That, you know, we try that for 2, 3, 4 weeks, realize it's real slow going, not working, and then we decide to have injections and surgery. In their eyes, that's wasted time. That's 3 or 4 weeks of wasted time. We're going to do that. Just cut straight in after the injection and surgery. Shaw mentioned an important point earlier about no egos and no heroes. Look, in a situation like this, I'm the back guy. Like I've said a couple of times, all eyes on me. I'd love to be that hero that manages his person all the way through and gets them back on the pitch in 6 weeks' time, scoring the winning goal. But, you know, not having an ego has got me into this position in the first place, to be able to be in this club. And I'm not changing my values at this point in time. That's sitting in the back of my mind. high pressure, we're sharing our responsibility, and there's this medical legal aspect too. You know, we've got a player with a floppy foot. You know, it's no good at the moment, is it? You bringing in the best research. Just whizzing through this. Injections, we're looking at systematic reviews and meta-analyses here. Not too much detail, but it's high-level evidence stuff. 8 RCTs, 771 patients involved in this study. Yes, steroid has a good short-term result compared to placebo. No benefit in function, no surprise there. But that doesn't matter because we're combining the injection with conservative treatment. So getting the function element, the conservative part of the treatment, the injection, we just need in a quick pain relief. Some relatively good evidence there that that's an effective approach. And the consultant knows that too. Surgery. With surgery, again, high level evidence here we're looking at. Surgery is followed by a rapid decrease in pain and disability by 3 months. The long-term results, in this study it's quoting 5 years, are crap. We know that with our patients in practice, we really want to avoid surgery as best we can. But with short-term mindset, yes, it's effective. And the study at the bottom there, surgery indeed speeds up recovery, but the effect is similar to 1 year. And then last of all, conservative treatment. Let's look at the bottom study there. That's our NICE guidelines, which kind of incorporates all the best evidence to provide, you know, guidelines for people like us. Manual therapy is effective at this type of thing. We know that, we see it all the time. Just an extra emphasis there. That's a treatment package that's needed, not just manipulation. There's lots of things needed with a focus on exercise too. So weighing up the big picture here of all the different things and how long it might take, combining it with an evidence-based mindset, plus the fact that we can chuck some money at this thing. We decide on the sides together that's an injection followed by conservative care is what we decide we're going to go for in this case. So day 4, he has his injection. Within 4 days after the injection, his pain's reduced by half, lumbar flexions improved 20 degrees, straight leg raise improved 15 degrees there, up to 45. No change in foot function just yet. And every single day, this player's getting manual therapy, that's chiropractic, physiotherapy, sports massage. He's having peripheral nerve stimulation down the foot as well. He's having exercises. He's been given lifestyle advice, and he's being loaded as well in a way that he can tolerate. A side track, I'm just going to take you down a little side path here because I think it's useful for people listening and has helped me up my game in private practice, is this idea of load. It's a big topic and I'm not going to go into it in detail, but the idea is load is kind of the equivalent of training, okay? If there's a spike in load, if there's a spike in someone's training plan, a spike in load, that's the point that they're vulnerable to injury. So in this instance, we have a player who's going to be out for a number of weeks. If he's lazy for these number of weeks, but you know, all right, he gets his disc injury, gets better, and he's ready to go back to training. But if he's lazy and then he suddenly goes back to training, that's a massive spike in training load. His body will break down. You see it all the time with people who've been out for training for a long period of time. They go back to training, and all right, it may not be the original injury that breaks down, but something else breaks down. It's really important that when we're seeing our athletes in private practice or wherever, when they're out injured for a long period of time, we've got to find a way that we've got to keep their training load up so that when they do get back to training, it's not a huge spike. Other ideas with that, by the way, common things, you see it as well, you know, off season and then suddenly they go into pre-season training. Massive spike, they drop like flies. Be mindful around that time of the year if you're seeing an athlete. Or another example on a smaller scale is like our weekend warriors. People are sitting down all day long, not loading their body. And on the weekends, they suddenly load their body and they get injured. The temptation is to say to them, oh, be careful at weekends, do less, don't overdo it at weekends. Well, actually, that's their only bit of exercise they're doing. We need them to keep doing that exercise. The trick is to bring up their load during the weekdays. So we encourage them to be more active during the weekdays. And therefore, the relative difference between the weekdays and the weekends is less. They're less likely to get injured. Sorry, sidetrack. Day 15, so 2 weeks in at this point, 11 days after his epidural, he's down to a 2 out of 10 pain. It's dropping really quite quickly there. The pain centralizes just up in the buttock at this point, and his straight leg raise is creeping up too. Starting to see a little glimpse here that his foot and ankle strength is starting to improve. It's still pretty poor. We're trying to be objective by using a dynamometer here, but starting to get a little glimpse that things are starting to change there. His treatment every single day is the same. His progression's increasing, and we're starting to load him a little bit more. We can get him water running at this point. So another familiar thing everybody will go through with all their patients is someone comes in pain. That's our first goal. We want to reduce pain. When that settles, we're starting to look to optimize function. And when their function's good, we're going to try and keep them there with maintenance. A slight change with an athlete is that we've got this number 3 here, is we're looking to return them to play at the right time. Usually after their function's starting to improve, we're trying to insert them back into their training. And it's what I want to talk about with this player. So I'm going to just talk about return to play. Again, another thing that when I got my head around this, it really builds confidence with your athletes in clinic. If you can start to negotiate this period of time where they're improving and you want to get them back to their sport. And if you can master this, it really helps. So return to play. Anyone see that? And see Boris's address to the nation last night. These colours remind me of the same thing. I think we're down to the red and yellow area at the moment, aren't we? With COVID, we're working our way up to green. Anyway, red is pain, yellow to green is optimised function, green is maintenance. At the right time, we're looking to return into play. Professional football, the mindset with the return to play idea is that we want to put this athlete through a series of tests before we insert them back into training. So what does a series of tests mean? Well, let's break down football. Let's break down the sport. What have we got? We've got walking, we've got running, we've got sprinting, we've got change in direction, we've got short pass, we've got long pass, we've got jumping, all right? There are a few other things too, but let's break it down to that type of thing. And you can do this with any sport. When you've got an athlete in front of you, just break down their sport into a series of different tests. And then we're going to take them through a traffic light system. So we're going to get them to try and tick these boxes, those activities at 50% effort, then 75% effort, then 100% effort. And this is going to take over a number of days. The longer they're out for, the bigger their injury, the slower this return to play process will be. If they've only been out for a week or 2, you can get through a traffic light system in a couple of days. And the idea is that, you take them through some red light testing. Actually, it flares up their symptoms. Well, it's just a small relapse, isn't it? They don't have a complete full-blown relapse. They're not back to square one, like a setback by 4 weeks. It's just a setback by a couple of weeks. It's a controlled experiment to try and make sure they get back to sport safely. So going back to our player, his objective markers there on the left-hand side are really looking quite good. In particular, the physios are quite keen that he's barely got any pain. I'm not in on this day, but the physio decided, let's start a return to training protocol at this point. So he takes him outside, he's just straight line running, okay, red light testing, that's all it is, straight light running at 50% speed. Well, surprise, surprise, the player says, well, I've got pain when I open up my stride. Think about the mechanics for straight leg raise. It's kind of the equivalent of opening up your stride when you're running, isn't it? And his straight leg raise is still not great, it's only 60 degrees. So no wonder he's getting some pain there. Ankle feels unstable, well, yeah. His testing there is still pretty poor, not surprising, but that's okay. It's a controlled experiment. We pull the plug and we try again in a week's time. In actual fact, instead of the return to play being up in the green zone there, which would have been ideal, I think we just started a bit too soon. We get a thumbs up day 21 from the consultant. That's a nice little ego boost for everyone in the team, that the player's on the right track. Day 22, so we're just over 3 weeks in, no pain anymore, mild awareness at end range flexion, straight leg raises just improved by another 10 degrees over that week, and it is enough on his red light testing for him to be able to open up his stride and get more speed and not get any symptoms or a bit of mild hip pain. So we decide that that's encouraging. We're going to keep him at that level. We're not going to drop him back down. We're not going to progress him. We're going to keep him at that level. And to note there that he's strapped his ankle for some more stability. I think we're about a week later, we progress into amber. 75% speed now with his running. He's changing direction, he's accelerating, he's doing some short passes. Yes, he's struggling a little bit, so we keep him at that level. And again, another week or so later, he's up to sort of progressing a little bit more with his amber light tests. And we decide to progress into green light testing. So after about 6 weeks, his objective markers are looking great, and it's a shared decision with everybody to returning back to his training. And important note as well, particularly when they've been out for a while, the player's psychologically ready. I'm not involved in that decision, but the player deems he's psychologically ready to go back. So 6 months later, it takes some time, but RTP, I've used the word return to play a few times. Well, actually, it's kind of helpful to manage a player's expectations when they're out for a while. But return to play doesn't just mean you're injured and then you're straight back in the squad and you're scoring goals. Return to play could be broken down to return to participation, which is actually what we were working on with this player, just getting him back into training. And then it's return to play. So you've got to be, training for a couple of weeks with the squad before you're actually selected for the team. And actually, you've got to be playing quite a few matches before your performance really comes back and you're super sharp. So that's helpful to break down. It's a conversation you can have with someone over time that it's not, they're not straight back into their squad. It's going to take a little bit more time. And please report he's a regular first team player. He still has ankle strapping. His strength is not 100% in that foot and ankle, but it doesn't seem to be affecting his performance on the pitch. And chiropractic still plays a role with him in his maintenance. So some summary of some key points here. I think we're doing all right with time. Yeah, cool. In elite sport, when we see in the news, this was kind of a wake-up thing for me, is that when I've seen in the news in the past that a high-profile player has undergone some surgery, you kind of think, well, what's going on with that player? Why haven't they got the right people in the team to manage that conservatively and get him back on the pitch? Well, actually, we've seen there's a unique set of circumstances with some of these players, depending on a lot of things. Actually, there is still conservative treatment involved in this. The consultant has just added in his 2 pennies worth, and the team have decided that there's a certain route that they've gone down. So it doesn't mean that the conservative treatment was a failure. It just means that player has a unique set of circumstances. When you're under pressure, and you can feel it in private practice as well, lots of questions flying at you, you're feeling the heat, get more information, send out for more information, or involve others in the decision making. Sean mentioned that himself. And if we're working in chiropractic only clinics, I think we just need to work that extra bit harder to get out and know the people in other clinics around us and know their expertise, communicate with them so that we can share and offload some of them and ask for some help and ask for their expertise. And it happens 2 ways as well. When you're going through a return to play process, the importance of objective markers. If you're seeing an athlete, 2 or 3 tests that you repeat every single time that you can use as a benchmark to know whether they've had an improvement or whether they've had a setback. Things that don't involve just pain levels, for example. We need some more hard objective measures here. In this case, it was a straight leg raise and his handheld dynamometer. Evidence-based medicine works. I say reluctantly because it's hard work to keep up to date with all the up-to-date evidence. And we're all busy, and you see it a lot with more senior people, not just in chiropractic, but in maybe sports medicine as a whole, is that those 3 circles. Yes, as you get older and you get more experience, you're able to draw more experience. That circle in evidence-based medicine, the experience circle, is bigger and bigger and bigger. They tend to rely less and less on the most up-to-date evidence, and you can hear it when you're speaking to them. And as chiropractors, that there's a relatively small number of us in these environments, and I think we just need to work that extra bit harder to stay on top of the most up-to-date evidence so that we can gain the respect of others in these environments quickly, and have more of an input. Chiropractic, I firmly believe, is more effective as part of a team. I also believe that a team is more effective with chiropractic. And we offer much more than just manipulation. In this instance, it's a package of care that helped this particular player, but it's also just the expertise and the decision-making and being involved in the conversations. And as Sean said a couple of times, and I'll highlight, is that there is no place for an ego in an environment like this. I'd like to finish by talking about the Royal College of Chiropractic Sports Faculty. Been a massive help in helping me progress my career over the past 11 years or so, and helping me get roles in sport, which I'm really passionate about. And so I'm doing my bit now alongside, and seeing the bottom right there, that's Mel Davis, who works in athletics, and Dan Morgan on the left, who works in rugby. And as a team, we're doing our bit now to try and help other chiropractors, do what they want to do in sport. There's only one sports chiropractic organisation in the UK, and that's the LCC Sports Faculty, and it's got some of the most, experience and some of the top UK sports chiropractors involved. We've just finished a project while we've been in lockdown. It's almost like a manual for sports chiropractors, and it's we incorporated some of the expertise of 23 different chiropractors in the UK to help design this manual. There's 17 odd chapters, and it's all the information we wanted to know when we, those first few years out in practice, on how we can get a job in sport. Designing your own pathway into professional sport, qualifications, courses and CPD that might be recommended to do, what you need to focus on as soon as you graduate, who should I contact if I want a job in sport, how do I contact them, how do I promote myself as a sports chiropractor, frequently asked questions, all these types of things. So I think this will really provide value to our members, particularly the newer, younger members. And if you're a chiropractor out there listening who think, is passionate about sport, there really is a role for chiropractors in professional sport. We just need to know how to play the game, and we need to know how to get there, and how to have the skills and the experience and the know-how to get to these positions. And I think being a member of the Royal College of Chiropractors, if you're listening, is a fantastic way of doing it. So if you want to know more information, send me an email. My email address is at the bottom there, so make a note of that or screenshot that. I'd love to help. Send me an email and I'll give you some more information on how to get some of this information.